Yo, what up? I'm back. Last video, I redesigned Inteleon to suit my tastes, and I said I would do the same thing for Cinderace and Rillaboom. It was at that moment I got cast into the gaming zone, where I had to fight the god of Reddit decline. After slaying the beast, I emerged, reborn as the enlightened one. Now I can finally get back to the grind!
The thing that made me feel stupid in the first place.
Hello and welcome back to A Clown Stole a Pen, where I pretend to be a better artist than the guys behind the biggest media franchise in the world. Starting out with Cinderace, I changed them the least as I find them to be the best of the three. I wanted to keep the athletic aspect of the character, but if I was going to give them a secondary type like Inteleon, they needed a little extra spice. I started by looking at other Cinderace redesigns, but I don't really like any of them. Every redesign I've seen is either over-designed or really edgy. So after giving up on stealing, I went to learn Cinderace's lore, and that led me to Lockstin's video on Cinderace. According to him, Cinderace has ties to an old Mesoamerican sport where they kicked a rock covered in rubber, kind of like soccer. The rock represents the sun, and kicking it back and forth symbolizes the passing of each day or something like that. He also tied Cinderace to the golden three-legged crows of Chinese mythology, which all used to be suns until they got shot down by Hao Yi. Furthermore, when I think of athleticism, I think of Hermes, who is a psychopomp, or someone who guides spirits to the afterlife. Blending them all together, you get the original concept. Cinderace would search for lost spirits and participate in competitions with other Pokemon to give the spirits enough strength to move on to the afterlife in a big ball of fire. This idea was cool, but I didn't go through with it for a couple of reasons. First off, I could see it very quickly going down the edgy rabbit hole, and I really didn't feel like that fit the character. Secondly, that Cinderace would probably be a ghost type, and we just got 2 fire ghost type starters back to back. Not to mention, it gets in the way of my concept I have for Rillaboom. Thirdly, that's a very specific set of events, and in my opinion, too complicated and contrived. It reads more like the premise for an episode of the anime than a thing every Cinderace does, so I had to drop most of it. I kept the ties to Hermes and introduced some elements from the Wolperdinger, which is a German creature that ranges from evil jackalope to whatever the this thing is. My main takeaway was the wings and the antlers, as antlers remind me of lightning bolts, and the wings tie back to Hermes' winged ankles and cap. You'll see multiple times throughout the time-lapse I tried to give Cinderace fangs as well, but it never worked. I also desperately tried to give Cinderace a pattern on its chest that looked like a medal combined with Hermes' staff, but it was just not clicking. I used Hermes' helmet as inspiration for the top of their head, and made their ears look reminiscent of wings. I also gave them a band around their waist that looks like they just ran through a finish line, and changed their leg shape to be more rabbit-like. That's always bugged me about the Galar starters. They each have very humanoid proportions in places they really don't need them. Cinderace, the energized Pokemon. Cinderace often challenge fellow Pokemon to athletic competition. As their opponent loses stamina, Cinderace gets faster by absorbing the extra energy expended by them. That has a tendency to overconfidence. The new lore isn't as interesting as the original concept, but it stays true to the character and sticks with the recycling theme I introduced when I redesigned Inteleon. I also changed the shiny significantly because the original Cinderace shiny is an affront to God. Next up is Rillaboom. I didn't expect to change this design as much as I did, but it turns out giving a type to Rillaboom that isn't fighting actually makes an interesting Pokemon. Now, right off the bat, I know you're probably thinking, he should beat his chest like an actual gorilla. I understand that sentiment and originally planned to do that, but I decided against it for a couple reasons. Firstly, it was really contrived and awkward to pull off with the concept I had. Secondly, it had been done to death in much better ways than I care to compete with. Finally, I don't think Rillaboom not beating their chest is a missed opportunity. I think that's the point. To me, the concept of Rillaboom reads as gorilla that beats a drum instead of his chest. So taking away his drum just makes him a normal gorilla. Therefore, I kept the drum, but I changed it a bit. I flipped it because I always felt like it was at an awkward angle. I think it's based on a drum that's played vertically like that, but boo-hoo, cry about it. I also got rid of his sticks in favor of him slapping it, mainly because it fit with the new spooky style he's got going on now. Rillaboom is now a ghost type, which is reflected in the skull and rib pattern on his face and chest. His new patterns are also reminiscent of the makeup worn by Kiss and other similar bands, which might help bring back some of the punk drummer I lost when I took away his sticks. I stole the hair twingy thing from this design because I thought it was neat, as well as the leaf cuffs. Finally, I made his feet into hands, as I always felt Rillaboom having normal people feet was a really odd design choice. Rillaboom, the drummer Pokemon. Rillaboom are known to scavenge for dead stumps in haunted forests. Once they find one to their liking, they'll drum on it to supposedly communicate with the dead. The noise made by their playing is reminiscent of bellowing spirits and often puts other Pokemon on edge. I like this guy a lot. I really feel like I've made something no one else has. I swapped his physical and special attacking stats to better fit his spiritual powers and gave him a new hidden ability, Wicked Wood. This ability makes it so every Pokemon hit by Rillaboom's grass-type moves gain the curse effect. I'd imagine purple ghost roots would come out of Rillaboom's stump in his signature move. And there you have it, I finally did the other two. Honestly, the main reason I took so long on this video is because I felt I had to force my own passion. Don't get me wrong, I still plan on making plenty of Pokemon videos in the future, but the next one is probably going to be something different. Subscribe, I guess, like if you liked it, and dislike it if you're a bad person. If there was anything you would have done differently, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I will see you later. Bye-bye!